The silver knife trembled in my hand as I sliced through the prosciutto, paper-thin pieces curling onto the marble counter. Everything had to be perfect tonight. The first time meeting my son's fiancée deserved nothing less than immaculate presentation, even if my gut churned with an inexplicable dread. I'm Sutton, and after 22 years of being the only woman in Liam's life, I was about to share that privilege with someone else. The doorbell chimed. My knife slipped, nearly catching my finger. I wiped my hands, smoothed down my silk blouse, and crossed the hardwood floors that had witnessed every milestone of Liam's life. Now they'd carry the weight of this moment too. Mom. Liam's embrace was warm, familiar. He'd grown taller than me years ago, but I still saw traces of that little boy who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms. This is Chloe. She stepped forward, all polished edges and calculated grace. Designer dress, perfectly styled hair, and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Mrs. Harrison, I've heard so much about you. Please, call me Sutton. I extended my hand, but she moved in for an embrace instead, her expensive perfume overwhelming my senses. Her grip was just a fraction too tight, lasting a moment too long. Your home is absolutely charming, Chloe said, her gaze sweeping across my carefully curated living room. So, cozy, though I imagine it must feel quite empty now that Liam's moved out. The slight pause before cozy didn't escape me. Neither did the way she kept her hand possessively on Liam's arm. Wine, I offered, leading them to the dining room where candles flickered against crystal glasses. It's a Bordeaux from 2015. Oh, I only drink natural wines now, Chloe said. The sulfites, you know. But don't worry about me. Liam jumped in. The table looks amazing, Mom. You didn't have to go through all this trouble. It's no trouble, I said, watching Chloe examine the place settings with the scrutiny of a health inspector. I wanted tonight to be special. Over appetizers, Chloe steered the conversation toward my career. Liam mentioned you used to be quite the powerhouse attorney. What made you step back into consulting? Mom chose to focus on raising me, Liam said proudly. How noble, Chloe smiled. Though it must have been difficult watching your colleagues advance while you simplified your life. The prosciutto turned to ash in my mouth. Actually, consulting offers more flexibility and, oh, that reminds me, Chloe cut in, turning to Liam. Remember that partner position I mentioned? They're fast-tracking my application. We might need to postpone our house hunting. That's wonderful, Liam beamed at her. Mum, Chloe's been killing it at her tech startup. Youngest team lead in company history. Impressive, I said, noting how she'd masterfully deflected attention from my career to hers. What exactly does your company do? Oh, it's quite complex. Corporate restructuring mainly. Actually, I'd love your insight on some legal matters, given your experience. She paused, fork hovering over her untouched salad. Have you ever handled cases involving intellectual property theft? The question landed like a stone in still water. Specific, targeted. My wineglass froze halfway to my lips. That's quite a specific area of interest, I said carefully. Just professional curiosity, Chloe shrugged, but her eyes held mine with unsettling intensity. You never know when such knowledge might come in handy. The evening continued like a choreographed dance, each step measured, each word weighted. But as I watched Chloe orchestrate every conversation, smoothly positioning herself between Liam and me, both physically and metaphorically, that initial dread crystallized into certainty. This wasn't just about meeting my son's fiancée. This was about something else entirely. The way she probed about my past cases, her calculated comments about my career choices, the subtle digs wrapped in sweet smiles. She was gathering ammunition. As they prepared to leave, Chloe embraced me again. Thank you for such an enlightening evening, Sutton. I can't wait to really get to know you. The threat beneath her words was clear as crystal. This wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning. Maya's garden always smelled like jasmine and secrets. I sat across from her on the weathered deck chairs, clutching my coffee mug like a lifeline while describing last night's dinner with Chloe. She kept asking about my old cases, Maya, specific ones, the kind nobody remembers unless they're digging. Could be professional interest, Maya said, but her frown betrayed her doubt. She works in tech, right? Corporate restructuring. I set down my mug, which makes her questions about intellectual property theft even more interesting. My phone buzzed. A text from Liam. Chloe's planning a surprise visit to the wedding venue. She'd love your input. 20 minutes later, I pulled into the gravel driveway of Rosewood Manor. Chloe stood on the sweeping steps, designer sunglasses perched on her head, tapping away at her phone. No Liam in sight. "Oh, Sutton," she air-kissed my cheek. "I hope you don't mind. Liam got caught up at work. But I thought this would give us a chance to bond." The venue coordinator led us through the historic mansion. Chloe dominated the tour, speaking over the coordinator about her vision for each space. I noticed how she positioned herself between me and the coordinator, controlling the flow of information. The library would be perfect for the ceremony, the coordinator suggested. "Oh no," Chloe laughed. "That's much too small. We're thinking the grand ballroom. My guest list alone is 300 people." My stomach clenched. 300? Liam wanted a small wedding. Things change. Chloe's smile didn't waver. "Speaking of change, I've been meaning to ask about your consulting work. Any interesting cases lately?" "Nothing that would interest you. Don't sell yourself short. I heard you handled the Martinez tech merger last year. Fascinating case, especially the intellectual property disputes." The coordinator excused herself to take a call, leaving us alone in the ballroom. Chloe's heels clicked against the hardwood as she circled me. "You know what I find interesting," she said. "How certain sensitive documents from that case disappeared right before the ruling." My pulse quickened. "That's privileged information, is it? I suppose that's why it never made the papers." She examined her manicure. "Imagine the scandal if it had." "What do you want, Chloe?" "Want? I want us to be family, Sutton. I want you to trust that I know what's best for Liam, and I want you to step back from the wedding planning. Completely. And if I don't, then we'll have to have a very different conversation about trust, and documents, and statute of limitations." The coordinator returned, chattering about table arrangements. Chloe transformed instantly, all smiles and enthusiasm. That evening, I sat in my home office, staring at the Martinez case files. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "Interesting day at Rosewood. We should talk." Ethan, Chloe's co-worker. Before I could respond, Liam called. "Mom, Chloe told me about the venue. Isn't it perfect?" "It's grand." I hesitated. "Liam, are you sure this is what you want? It seems very different from what we discussed." "I know it's not what we planned, but Chloe has this amazing vision, and her connections could really help my career. You understand, right?" I thought of the Martinez files, of Chloe's veiled threats, of my son's voice tinged with hope and uncertainty. "Of course I understand," I lied. "Whatever makes you happy." After hanging up, I opened my laptop and typed Chloe Bennett into the search bar. If she wanted to dig into my past, I could do some digging of my own. The search results loaded: employment history, social media profiles, news articles. But it was a small item from 3 years ago that caught my eye. A brief mention of another engagement, ended abruptly amid rumors of corporate espionage. My phone buzzed again. Ethan. "There's more to Chloe than anyone knows. Meet tomorrow." I typed back, "Name the place." The Martinez file sat heavy on my desk, a reminder of past mistakes and present threats. Chloe thought she had me cornered, but she'd made one crucial error. She'd threatened the wrong mother. The coffee shop buzzed with morning chatter, but Ethan's voice cut through it like a knife. She did the same thing at her last company, got engaged to the CEO's son, gained access to sensitive information, then disappeared when the merger went through. I studied him across the table, rumpled shirt, shadows under his eyes, fingers drumming nervously on his paper cup. Not exactly the picture of a reliable witness, but his details were too specific to ignore. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I've watched her do it again. The engagement, the careful questions, the way she positions herself." He leaned forward. "And because I saw what happened to James Porter, the name hit me like a physical blow. James Porter, the CEO's son from Chloe's previous engagement. I'd seen the name in my research, but nothing more." "What happened to him?" Ethan's phone buzzed. His face went pale. "She's here, at the office. I have to go." He hurried out, leaving me with more questions than answers. I pulled out my phone, searching for James Porter. Nothing recent, but an archived article caught my eye. Tech Air steps down after security breach scandal. My phone rang. "Liam." "Mum, you'll never believe it. Chloe just got promoted to Director of Operations. We're celebrating tonight at Laurent's. You'll come, right?" The same restaurant where I'd celebrated making partner 15 years ago. Of course she'd choose that. "Wouldn't miss it," I said, already pulling up Laurent's seating chart from my old client files. That evening, Chloe held court at the best table in the house, the one with sightlines to every entrance. She wore cream silk, but her smile was all teeth. "Sutton, I'm so glad you could make it." She gestured to the man beside her. "This is Marcus Chen, our new investor. He was just telling me about his daughter's wedding in Bali." I recognized the name from my Martinez case files, the ones Chloe had threatened me with. "How lovely," I said, watching her hand rest possessively on Liam's arm. "Though I thought you wanted a small ceremony." "Oh, that was before," Liam said. "But with Chloe's promotion, we thought why not dream bigger?" Chloe finished. "Actually, Marcus's company is looking for legal consultation. I mentioned your expertise." The trap was elegant in its simplicity. Take the job, become complicit, refuse, risk Liam's future. "I'm quite selective about my clients these days." "Mom," Liam frowned, "this could be huge for both of us." My phone vibrated, an email from an anonymous account. "James Porter, Meadowbrook Recovery Center." "Excuse me," I said, standing. "I need to make a call." In the restaurant's elegant bathroom, I read the full email: medical records, police reports, psychiatric evaluations. James Porter had suffered a complete breakdown after the merger scandal. His father's company had collapsed, their family fortune decimated. The bathroom door opened. "Chloe." "Everything all right? You seemed distracted." "Just work." I met her eyes in the mirror. "Tell me, do you still keep in touch with James Porter?" The slight widening of her eyes was all I needed. "That's ancient history," she said, her voice carefully controlled. "Though speaking of history, how is the Martinez case documentation? All properly archived? You know what's interesting about archives?" I turned to face her. They never really disappear. They just wait for the right moment. "Careful, Sutton." Her mask slipped for just a second. "Some moments can't be taken back." She left, her heels clicking against marble. Through the door, I heard Liam's laugh, bright and trusting. My phone buzzed again. Another email. "Meeting tomorrow, 2 p.m., Meadowbrook Recovery Center." JP. I looked in the mirror, seeing not just my reflection, but 22 years of protecting Liam, of teaching him to ride a bike, to stand up to bullies, to trust his instincts. I'd fought for him since the day he was born. I wasn't about to stop now. Returning to the table, I watched Chloe charm Marcus Chen, her hand still on Liam's arm. She'd orchestrated everything perfectly: the promotion, the investor, the trap. But she'd made one critical mistake. She'd threatened my son, and she was about to learn why even the most brilliant predators fear a mother's rage. Meadowbrook Recovery Center loomed against the autumn sky, all red brick and barred windows. James Porter sat across from me in the visitor's room, his expensive sweater hanging loose on his frame, hands trembling as he stirred his untouched tea. She'll destroy him, James said, just like she destroyed me. And the worst part, he'll thank her for it. A nurse passed by, checking on us through the reinforced glass. James flinched at the movement. Tell me about the merger, I said. There was no merger. That was the point. She got access to everything. Security protocols, trade secrets, client lists. By the time anyone realized what was happening, he pressed his fingers to his temples. My father lost everything. 40 years of building our company, gone in 6 months. My phone buzzed. A text from Liam. Mom, need your help. Chloe's arranged a meeting with Marcus Chen. Says you're joining the legal team. James noticed my expression. Let me guess. She's already positioning herself. What do you mean? The legal team was how she started with us. Said she needed to understand the company structure. Next thing I knew, she had access to everything. He leaned forward. Has she asked about your old cases yet? The Martinez files. My hands went cold. You need to understand something, James continued. She doesn't just take information. She makes sure you're complicit. By the time you realize what's happening, you're already trapped. Another text from Maya. Emergency. Ethan's been in an accident. Hospital says it wasn't an accident. The room suddenly felt too small. I stood, but James grabbed my wrist. Wait, there's something else. Something about her background. The door opened. A nurse entered. Mr. Porter, time for your medication. No, please, I need to tell her. But they were already leading him away, his last words lost in the institutional quiet. At the hospital, I found Ethan in intensive care. Car brake lines, Maya whispered. Police are investigating. My phone rang. Chloe. Sutton, I just heard about poor Ethan. Such a tragedy. You know, he's been under so much stress lately. Apparently, he's been accessing confidential company files after hours. The threat was clear as crystal. What do you want? Just what we discussed. The Martinez documentation, your legal expertise for Marcus's company, and a pause. A mother's blessing for her son's happiness. Through the hospital window, I watched Ethan's monitors beep steadily. He'd tried to warn me, and now, the meeting's tomorrow at 10, Chloe continued. I've already told Liam you'll be there. He's so excited about us all working together. After hanging up, I sat in the hospital corridor, my hands shaking as I opened my laptop. The Martinez files stared back at me. Evidence of corporate theft, manipulated depositions, a case that could have ruined lives if the truth had come out. My phone buzzed again. An unknown number. Grace Harrison trying to reach you. Urgent family matter. Grace, my mother. 20 years of silence, and she chooses now. A text from Liam appeared. Mom, you're coming tomorrow, right? This means everything to me. I closed my eyes, seeing James Porter's trembling hands, Ethan's still form, the Martinez files that could destroy everything I'd built. Chloe had orchestrated it perfectly, each piece falling into place, each person exactly where she needed them. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She thought she was dealing with a lawyer, a consultant, a woman bound by professional ethics and maternal guilt. She forgot she was dealing with a mother who'd spent 22 years protecting her child. I opened my phone and dialed the unknown number. Hello, Grace, we need to talk. Sometimes, to save someone you love, you have to be willing to burn everything else to the ground. I looked at Ethan's hospital room one last time, then walked out into the gathering dark. Tomorrow, I'd sit in that meeting. I'd smile and nod and play my part. And then I'd show Chloe exactly what happens when you back a mother into a corner. Because there are two types of revenge in this world, the kind that destroys you and the kind that sets you free. I was done being destroyed. Grace's house hadn't changed in 20 years. Same faded curtains, same porcelain cats, same heavy silence that had driven me away. She set down her teacup, hand steady despite her age. I should have warned you about Chloe Bennett, she said, or whatever name she's using now. My cup froze halfway to my lips. What do you mean? 3 years ago, she was Charlotte Brooks. Before that, Claire Blackwood. Grace pulled out a manila envelope. She's been running this scheme since she was 19. Different names, different cities, same pattern. Inside were newspaper clippings, police reports, photographs, young women with Chloe's face but different hair, different clothes, different lives. Each story ended the same way: destroyed companies, ruined families, missing documents. My phone buzzed. Ethan, finally conscious. She knows I talked to you, not safe. Delete everything. How did you get all this? I asked Grace. Because 5 years ago she was Catherine Barnes, and she almost destroyed your father's company. Grace's voice cracked. That's why he... The doorbell rang. Through the window I saw Chloe's sleek car in the driveway. Back door, Grace whispered, shoving the envelope into my hands. I'll stall her. I slipped out just as Chloe's voice filled the house, all warmth and charm. Mrs. Harrison, what a lovely surprise. Liam mentioned you and Sutton might reconnect before the wedding. In my car, hands shaking, I spread out the evidence. Each article revealed another piece. Corporate espionage, identity theft, strategic marriages. But it was the last photo that stopped my heart. Chloe with my father, taken months before his suicide. My phone lit up. Liam. Mum, where are you? Chloe says you missed the meeting with Marcus Chen. Everything okay? Before I could respond, another text arrived. Chloe. Interesting chat with your mother. Shame about your father's gambling debts. Or was it embezzlement? Records can be so... confusing. The steering wheel felt cold under my fingers. Through Grace's window, I watched Chloe embrace her, playing the perfect future granddaughter-in-law. But her eyes scanned the room, hunting. My phone buzzed again. Maya. Police called. Ethan's gone. Left against medical advice. No one knows where. Then Chloe. The Martinez files by midnight, or Liam learns everything about Grandpa's accident. Your choice. The envelope felt heavy in my lap. 20 years of running from my father's disgrace, of building a new life, of protecting Liam from our family's shadows. Now Chloe held all the threads, pulling them tight, but she'd made a mistake. She thought she was blackmailing a daughter ashamed of her father's sins. She didn't know she was threatening a mother protecting her son. I started the car just as Chloe emerged from Grace's house. Our eyes met across the driveway. She smiled, raised her hand in a wave that felt like a sentence. My phone lit up one last time. An unknown number. Storage Unit 23 Central Avenue. Password, redemption, come alone. JP, James Porter. Even from his hospital bed, he was still fighting. I pulled away from Grace's house, watching Chloe's figure shrink in my rearview mirror. She thought she had won, thought she held all the cards. But I had something she didn't. A mother's desperate love, and nothing left to lose. The storage facility waited ahead, its rows of metal doors holding who knew what secrets. Unit 23 stood at the end of a dark row, its padlock gleaming like a promise. Or a threat. I reached for the lock, remembering Liam's smile, my father's shame, Chloe's perfect mask. The password felt like ashes in my mouth. Redemption. Sometimes, to save someone you love, you have to be willing to face the darkest parts of yourself. The lock clicked open. The rehearsal dinner sparkled with false promises. Crystal glasses caught the light, casting prisms across white tablecloths, while Chloe worked the room like a conductor leading her orchestra. Every laugh, every toast, every casual touch on Liam's arm, a perfectly choreographed performance. I clutched James Porter's USB drive in my pocket, its edges digging into my palm. One file upload, one moment of truth, and everything would shatter. Mum! Liam appeared beside me, happiness radiating from his face. Thank you for being here. I know things have been tense, but seeing you and Chloe finally getting along. My throat closed. The evidence felt like lead in my pocket. Bank statements, falsified documents, proof of Chloe's previous identities. Everything needed to save him. Everything needed to break his heart. Speech time. Chloe clinked her glass, drawing all eyes. I want to thank everyone for coming, especially my future mother-in-law, Sutton. Despite our rough start, she's shown me what true family means. Our eyes met across the room. Her smile never wavered, but her message was clear. Check and mate. My phone buzzed. Maya. Ethan found dead in his apartment, police calling it suicide. The room spun. Chloe raised her glass higher. To family, to trust, to new beginnings. To new beginnings, the crowd echoed. I stood abruptly, chair scraping against hardwood. Heads turned. Liam frowned. Mom? I need some air. The balcony door clicked behind me, muffling the celebration. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone, downloading the files from Porter's drive. The door opened. Chloe's perfume reached me before her voice did. Beautiful night for ruining lives, isn't it? I turned. Her perfect mask had slipped, revealing something cold and familiar underneath. My father's eyes before the end. I know what you did to Ethan, I said. Tragic, wasn't it? Depression's such a terrible thing. She moved closer. Just like your father's gambling problem. Amazing how history repeats itself. Stay away from my son. Your son? She laughed softly. Liam's already mine, and after tonight's announcement about the merger with Marcus Chen's company, his future will be too. Unless what? Delete the files, Sutton. All of them. Walk away. Let your son be happy. My finger hovered over the upload button. One press and everything would end. The door opened again. Liam stepped out, champagne in hand. Everything okay out here? Perfect, darling, Chloe purred. Your mother was just giving me some marriage advice. He beamed at us both, this beautiful boy I'd raised alone, who still saw the world in simple truths, who still believed in happy endings. Actually, Chloe continued, why don't you share our news, Liam? Mom, he grabbed my hands, eyes shining. Marcus offered me a position running the new merger division. Chloe helped arrange everything. We're moving to London next month. The phone slipped from my fingers, shattering on the balcony floor. With it went Porter's evidence, my last chance at exposure. Isn't it wonderful? Chloe wrapped her arm around Liam's waist. A fresh start, far from old complications. I looked at my son, really looked at him, saw his joy, his trust, his complete faith in the woman beside him, saw how thoroughly she'd won. Mum, say something. The words stuck in my throat, because in that moment, I finally understood. This wasn't about saving Liam anymore. This was about choosing between destroying his happiness or watching him walk into a trap I couldn't prevent. Congratulations, I whispered. Chloe's victory smile flashed in the darkness. To family, she raised her glass. My son pulled me into a hug, while over his shoulder, Chloe mouthed two final words, game over. And it was. Because sometimes protecting someone means letting them go, even when you know they're walking straight into the arms of the enemy, even when it breaks everything you are. The wedding venue's grand hall echoed with last-minute preparations when Grace arrived, clutching a worn leather portfolio. Her hands trembled, but her voice carried across the space. Catherine Barnes, she called out. Chloe froze at the altar, where she'd been directing flower arrangements. The name hit like a thunderclap in the quiet room. I'm sorry. Chloe's smile remained perfect, but her knuckles whitened around the roses she held. Or was it Claire Blackwood? Charlotte Brooks? Grace moved closer, each step deliberate. You've had so many names, I lose track. Liam appeared from the side room. What's going on? Nothing, darling. Chloe reached for him, but Grace opened the portfolio. Your father didn't gamble away our company, Sutton. Grace's voice cracked. She did. 5 years ago, when she was Catherine Barnes, engaged to Thomas Mitchell. I stepped out from behind the altar, James Porter's USB drive now connected to the venue's display system. The screens flickered to life, showing document after document, bank statements, identity changes, police reports. Mum? Liam's confusion turned to concern. What is this? Ask her, I said softly. Ask her about Ethan. Chloe's mask slipped for just a moment, Liam, they're trying to ruin our happiness. Your mother can't stand seeing you move on. And your grandmother. Your grandmother lost everything, Grace continued. Just like James Porter's family. Just like Thomas Mitchell's. Just like every family you've destroyed. The doors burst open. Dylan rushed in, holding his phone. Liam, you need to see this. The merger documents, they're not what we thought. The company's being stripped for assets. Everyone's losing their jobs. Chloe's laugh turned sharp. You don't understand business, Dylan. Sometimes sacrifices, like Ethan. I stepped closer. Was he a necessary sacrifice? Ethan killed himself, she snapped, then caught herself. But it was too late. How did you know that? Liam asked quietly. His death wasn't announced as suicide. The silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Show him, Grace whispered. I pressed play. Security footage filled the screens. Chloe entering Ethan's building the night he died, leaving hours later with his laptop. He was unstable, Chloe's voice hardened. He would have ruined everything. Just like your father, Sutton. Just like everyone who stands in my way. My father, I said, was protecting me from you. And now I'm protecting my son. Protecting him? She laughed. Look around, Sutton. Look what you've done. You've destroyed his happiness, his career, his future. Some mother you are. No, Liam's voice cut through her words. You did that. When you lied, when you killed Ethan, when you tried to turn me against my own mother, everything I did was for us. Chloe reached for him, desperation cracking her perfect veneer. We can still have it all. London, the merger. The merger's fake, Dylan interrupted. The documents just leaked. It's all been a scam from the start. Chloe's eyes darted between us, calculating escape routes. But Grace stood by one door, Dylan by the other. And on the screens above, her past played out in damning detail. It's over, I said quietly. Over? Her laugh turned hysterical. You think this is over? Ask your mother what really happened the night your father died, Sutton. Ask her who really... I know what happened, Grace stepped forward. Because I was there, and I have proof. Chloe's composure shattered completely. She lunged for her bag, but Liam got there first, pulling out a gun. Insurance, she said wildly. Just insurance. For what? Liam's voice broke. For killing my grandfather, for planning to kill my mother. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Chloe's face contorted into something unrecognizable. No longer the perfect fiancée, but something raw and desperate. You're all the same, she spat. Weak, sentimental, thinking love conquers all. Love is a weapon, and I wielded it perfectly. No, I said, watching my son's heart break and heal in the same moment. Love is what brought you down. A mother's love. The one weapon you never understood. The police burst in as Chloe made her final desperate move. But in the end, it wasn't the evidence that destroyed her. It was the truth she never grasped. That sometimes the strongest vengeance isn't in destruction, it's in protection. The demolition crew arrived at dawn. I watched from my porch as they dismantled the gazebo where Liam had proposed to Chloe, each crack of splintering wood echoing like thunder. Maya appeared beside me, coffee in hand. You sure about this renovation? Through the window, I could see Grace in my kitchen, sorting through old photographs. She'd found one of my father earlier, his smile untouched by what was to come. Some structures can't be fixed, I said. You have to tear them down completely. The newspaper on my lap carried Chloe's sentencing on the front page. 5 to 10 years for corporate fraud, with additional charges pending for Ethan's death. Her mugshot showed a stranger, no makeup, no mask, just hollow eyes and bitter truth. Mum? Liam stood in the doorway, boxes in his arms. Where should I put Dad's old files? The study, Grace called out. We're organizing everything properly this time. Everything. Including the truth about my father's death, which Grace had finally shared. How he'd discovered Chloe's true identity. How he'd tried to warn me. How his accident hadn't been an accident at all. The demolition crew's machinery growled louder, and I watched another piece of my old life crumble. The detective called. Maya said quietly. They found Ethan's last video message. He recorded everything. I don't want to know. The words surprised me even as I said them. Some truths don't heal anything. Inside, Liam and Grace worked together, rebuilding our family's story one document at a time. Through the window, I saw him laugh at something she said, a sound I'd almost forgotten. Dylan's car pulled up, and he hurried over with a stack of papers. The merger's officially dead. The board voted this morning. Everyone keeps their jobs. And Marcus Chen? Singing like a bird to reduce his sentence. Dylan grinned. Turns out he's got quite a lot to say about Chloe's previous identities. The last wall of the gazebo fell, revealing the garden beyond. My garden. Not the pristine showcase Chloe had demanded, but the wild, honest space my father had loved. They're bringing James Porter home next week, Maya mentioned. His doctors say the breakthrough probably saved his life. A butterfly landed on the railing, its wings catching the morning light. For a moment, it looked like the one from my father's favorite photograph. The one where I'm 3 years old, chasing butterflies while he watched, proud and protective. You never told Liam everything, Maya said softly, about what Chloe planned for after the wedding. He doesn't need to know. I watched the butterfly take flight. Some burdens are meant for mothers alone. Grace appeared with fresh coffee, her hands steadier than they'd been in years. The contractors hear about the new plans. I stood, feeling the weight of the past fall away with each step toward the future. Through the dust of demolition, I could see the foundation, strong, unchanged, waiting for something new to rise. "Mom," Liam called from inside. "I found something weird in Dad's old files. Something about a safety deposit box." I exchanged glances with Grace. Some secrets weren't meant for today. Some truths would wait for their own time, their own story. "Coming," I called back, but paused at the door. The butterfly had returned, landing now on the space where the gazebo had stood. Maya touched my arm. "You okay?" I thought of Chloe in her cell, of Ethan's final warning, of my father's sacrifice, of all the ways love could turn to poison, and poison to protection. "I'm ready," I said, and stepped inside to help my son rebuild our home. Because that's what mothers do. We protect, we survive, we rebuild. And sometimes, in the ruins of what was lost, we find something stronger than revenge, the truth of who we really are. The butterfly took flight one last time, disappearing into the morning light, leaving only shadows and possibilities behind.